today is happiness. And so just take that blue card you have, write down your name on that. If you don't have a blue card, just grab any piece of paper you can find, write your name down and the word happiness, and keep track of how many times Dora Sue says that. And turn it into her or one of us, and at the end of the message, and be here next week, and you could win. How many of you know Dora Sue Redford? Yeah, a lot of people very familiar with this sweet, sweet woman, and I love that sarcastic look you give, too. Dora Sue has been professionally involved in educating people, and she's a very gifted communicator. She's going to be sharing with us today as part of our Thrive series about financial happiness. And one of the things I really appreciate about Dora Sue is that she is someone, again, that I look at and I think she's thriving. She's consistently cheerful, and she's not cheerful because she's oblivious. She's cheerful because she chooses to be cheerful, and she invests in people. She's been serving for several years as lay pastor here and at the Estacada Church, and just committed to helping people experience more joy and fullness in their lives. So we're really excited for her to share what God's laid on her heart this morning. So thank you.
Yeah, well, you laid it on my heart, actually.
Say to that.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be home once in a while. So, we got PowerPoint? Yes, we do. So, I am not really the expert on this subject. Money has never, and I have never been quite friends. But I do know who owns everything. And he has entrusted Steve and I with a certain amount of that green stuff. And our lives have been sweet. So, we're going to talk about a subject that is a little peripheral to my central knowledge base. Robbie Myers should be up here doing this, but I'm the one that ended here. Robbie, are you here? No? He's not even here to critique me? So, what if you had won the jackpot? You know, the 1.6 billion with a B jackpot. Anybody get a ticket? Anybody would admit getting a ticket? So how would you spend that money?
Spreading the word.
See? Spreading the word. Amen. Yeah, that's a lot of money. You'd have to hire people to manage your money. We discussed this at staff meeting this Tuesday, and it amused me that, that's basically what we decided too, but then we decided if we gave money to certain nonprofits, could we really divest ourselves of the interest of wanting to meddle? Yeah. Could we just give it away and say, God bless? That's the trick. So, someone won all that money, but I'm glad it's not me. I don't think I could handle it. But it's God's money anyway. So let me just ask you, what is money evil? Good. Yes. Okay, I want to hear from who said yes. Why? Because it's, Okay, so what is so wrong about money that we're so nervous about it? Oh, okay. Loving it. Serving it. Ooh. It's too much of a temptation. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff packed around the money issue, isn't there? In fact, did you know that in the Bible, money is mentioned and subject of the Bible more than grace and love? God knew where the briar patches would be for us, wouldn't he? So here's the deal. This is the bottom line. You know, when they teach people to speak, you're taught to tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them. So here's the whole bottom line. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, including us. God owns everything. Deuteronomy 10:14, behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens is the Lord thy God, and the earth also, and all that is there in it. It's all his. So, you know, this coin thing, in God we trust, that's not really the way it works. God is trusting us with resources. What are you going to do with that? People have talents. Remember the parable of the talents? The master was going to go away, and he lined up his servants, and he gave them talents. Now, talents wasn't something like music or the gift of speech or teaching and all of that. No, talents was money. He handed out money. And he said, I'm going away. Here's the money. I want you to do something with it. And there was different amounts of money. Not everybody got the same amount of money. In fact, the last little servant, he got 1 talent. But what did he do with it? He went and dug a hole and buried it. When the master came back, he said, here you are. It was safe. That's not what God wants from his money. He wants it to be invested. He wants to have us use it on his behalf and on behalf of the kingdom. So, what are we meant to do with what God gives us? Deuteronomy 8:17 and 18. This was Moses' goodbye speech. He was ready to turn it over to Joshua, and he's telling the children of Israel his last words. And he said, beware, lest you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, and that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. So Moses was reminding him, first things first, remember who gave you this. And that was the real reason why tithe was invented. Now, when I was a little kid in the lower divisions, you know, we'd have 10 pennies and 1 goes to Jesus, or 10 dimes and 1 goes to Jesus. Those aren't ours. They may be in our pocket, but they're not ours. They're Jesus. They're for him. And that is because God wants us to remember who is the source of every good thing. And a little bit off the top helps us to remember that. It's an object lesson to our hearts. On Malachi 3:10, the prophet was stuck. He was having a really hard time because God was telling him, the people are in trouble, and you've got to go and tell them about it. And Malachi said to the people, you are robbing God. And the people said, how are we doing that? And Malachi said, because God says you're not returning tithe. You are robbing God. But our God is a God of carrots, not sticks. He wants to provide every reason for us to remember him and to love him. So he says this in Malachi 3:10, bring you all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, there will not be room enough to receive it. Open your mouths, it says in another place. Open your mouths and taste and see that the Lord is good. Okay, now we're to the Robbie part. There are 3 things to do with money, basically. We can spend it, save it, invest it, or give it. So we are really the asset managers for the money that God puts into our hands and into our checkbooks. So, by the way, there will be a Financial Peace University coming up this next spring, so I wanted to make sure that you all know about that. I took that course some years ago when Steve and I were going through a very tough time. My job ended, it was eliminated. I was out of a job, underemployed or unemployed for about a 3-year period of time. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, you cannot tell if someone's poor by how they look. I can tell you I was poor. Not poor in spirit, but poor in money. And I tell you, I'd go through all of the console in the car, make sure I could find any pennies in there. Sofa cushions. Yeah. We did not have money, and we had bills. So I encourage you to participate in the Financial Peace University when it's offered again, because it really has very good principles, and I'm going to share a few of those with you today. But certainly nothing like you can get over the full program. So here we go. 3 things to do with money, spend it. Yeah, we're really good at that. Most of us are really bad, depending on which way you look at it. If anything that comes in goes out, then we're bad at it. Roof over your head, transportation, utilities, insurance, foods, clothes, you know, the stuff that we need to keep ourselves bodily together, etc., etc., etc. But the problem is when our wants get confused with our needs. I've never seen a budget item, even on a big official budget, that says wants. A little over a year ago, a teenager started a fire in the Eagle Creek Trail, which turned into one of the most devastating forest fires in Oregon history. And Steve and I were packing to take the first vacation we had taken together in many years. We were going to go to Yellowstone. Never been there with Steve. But instead, we had heard that the fire was approaching the northern boundary of the Bull Run watershed, which is just over the hill from us. And we decided to plan for an evacuation rather than a vacation. I tell you what, brothers and sisters, that was a really good values clarification exercise. What am I going to take? Now, we had some experience with this because of the Pit 36 fire down in Estacada, which is just the other direction from us. And I'd asked Steve at that time, if we had to bug out, what would we take? And he said, the pets. And I said, so if we had a half an hour, what would we take? And I wrote it down. And if we had 60 minutes, what would we take? Okay? So then by the time I got to the Eagle Creek fire, I lost the list. But I had it in my head. You know, we knew what we would take. And you know what, brothers and sisters, I walked right by my 12-piece setting of Mikasa china and my goblets and my silver that I use like once a year. I walked right by them to the pictures, to the doll closet Grandpa made me. Those things that are irreplaceable, they're not worth anything except to me. See, that's the way the Lord looks at the world. The whole world is worth nothing. He wants you. He knows who is important. It's you. Okay, so let's go back to spend it. So, wants and needs. The Sermon on the Mount, chapter 6 of Matthew. This stuff, Jesus said, your Father knows what you need already. You don't even have to ask for that. That's what the Gentiles do. It doesn't, go ahead and ask, but I got you. So when we do ask, give us this day our daily bread, that doesn't cover my Mikasa china. Okay, let me go back here. Wait, am I behind? There we go. That 3-year period that I mentioned that I was unemployed or underemployed, I tell you what, I've got some stories. I went to, of course, the Satan always knows when you're stressed. So my washing machine quit. So I had to go to the laundromat. I hadn't been to the laundromat in a long time, but I knew you needed change. So I went to Fred Meyer, and I knew there was a change maker in the laundromat. You could feed it money and it would spit out quarters. So I decided I'd get a $20 cash back as I was checking out through Fred Meyer, and it was one of those you check places, you know, where you scan everything yourself. Anyway, I said cash back, $20. So when I got all my clothes in from the car, I put them all in washing machines, and I went to the wall and I got my purse out, and I didn't have my $20. I had left it in that little place where it spits it out. And I started recriminating myself, what a ditz. You can't afford to lose $20. What were you thinking? And I got my phone out and I called Fred Meyer. I don't know why I did that. I knew I wouldn't find it. And I called Fred Meyer and I talked to customer service. I said, by any chance, did anybody turn in $20 bill? And she said, well, let me see. She came back, yeah, there's one here. I said, really? I said, I think that's mine. I asked for cash back and it spit it out and I forgot to take it. She said, well, just bring your receipt where it says cash back. That was a short trip to Fred Meyer. I was singing the whole way. $20, you wouldn't think that would be such a big deal, but oh, my heart was so happy. And then there was the day when Lori Burning drove up in our driveway. And I said, hi, what you doing? She says, well, I'm here just to give you this. And she hands me an envelope. And I said, well, what's this? And she said, well, someone handed it to me and asked me to deliver it. It was $134. And I said, well, who did this? She says, I can't tell you. So I still don't know who sent that money to us, but it was so appreciated. It just made my heart happy. But you know what? I'll bet whoever gave it, their heart was happier. And then we had a big John Deere tractor, beautiful thing, didn't run. Sitting there in our driveway, taking up space. The neighbor came over, he says, hey, would you be interested in selling your tractor? I said, maybe, I'll talk to Steve. And Steve says, sure, why not? He did some research. We put a price tag on it, no argument. The neighbors paid us $10,000 for this tractor that didn't run, paid 6 months of house payments. You can't tell me that God doesn't know what we need. He is so generous and so good. And his timing, Jim said once, I remember him during this period of time, he said, Dora Sue, God is never late, but he's seldom early. I can tell you that's true. Then I went to the post office one day and there was something from Dutch Boy Paint, and I opened it up and it was a $2 rebate on a can of paint I'd bought months ago. And I needed to buy tomatoes and peanut butter. And there I had it. So these are some things that Steve and I have learned over the years about money. Don't spend it if you don't have it. It may seem like a duh to some people, but if you have a credit card, that's very, very easy to do. And think of things in terms of time, like my Mikasa china. I bought it on credit. It was on sale. Yeah, I hear somebody groaning. I bought it on credit. It took us time to pay it off, which meant that there was interest, which probably wiped off any sale that it had. Plus, if I knew now, if I knew then what I knew, I would have divided that cost by how much I make an hour to decide if it would be worth it. How much time does it cost to get a thing? because time is life. What I do with my life matters. Do I want to spend my life on Mikasa, China? Or do I want to use it for something that's kingdom building? Okay, another thing that is a very adult thing to do, but a lot of adults have not learned to do, is wait. Deferred gratification is even sweeter than instant gratification. And consider maintenance. Do you own the thing or does it own you? Okay, we have a house. We're so grateful for it, and we're so blessed. It's right on the bluff of the Little Sandy River. We can see nothing between us and Mount Hood. And we praise God and thank Him every day for this comfortable and warm and sheltering place that we have. But I have to paint it. And it's getting to the point where when I have to get up on the roof, it's a little scary. So, does it own me or do I own it? Think about that. I paint one side of the house every summer, because nobody can see more than one side of the house at one time anyway. But maintenance, think about that. And the last little bit of advice, if you're in a hole, stop digging. I know people that are using charge cards to pay off the minimum balance on their charge card. That's dangerous. You'll never catch up. I can tell you that from experience. So here we go. Here's a Proverbs. This is a very wise man who said this. Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant of the lender to the lender. So this is our life now. Most Americans are dragging around a lot of debt. This is the modern day slavery. If you have debt, you are not your own person. And I know that from experience too, from trying to talk people as in charge cards and Chase and Bank of America into lowering my minimum monthly payment. It's not easy to negotiate those things, especially when you are not earning any money. So here's a little poem by Ogden Nash, American poet. Some debts are fun when you are acquiring them, but none are fun when you set about retiring them. So here's what we need. We need to have intensity to get out of debt. Proverbs again, Solomon says, deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, or as a bird from the hand of a fowler. Now this picture of this gazelle trying to escape from a cheetah, that's intensity. And the wisest man that ever lived says this is what we need to do with debt. Get out of it. So how do you do that? Well, slowly. Slowly. And go to Financial Peace University, look up Dave Ramsey on the internet. Start small. Focus on paying more than your minimum to the smallest amount due to anybody. Pay it off. Then use the amount that you were paying them to pay the next buddy. Pay them off. Use the same amount that you just paid off to pay the next person on your list. And pay them off. It will take you from 24 to 36 months, but you can do it. And here's what you do when you get overwhelmed. Remember, you are the child of the King, and He has everything you could possibly need. This is my favorite verse. If God loved us so much that He did not spare His own Son, but let Him suffer for us all, wouldn't He willingly do anything else to help us? The other stuff is easy stuff. He gave us His Son. Why would He not give us all things? Okay, we talked about spend it now. We're going to talk about saving and investing it. I am not an expert on this. I don't know 401ks. I don't know IRAs. I don't know. That's a subject for another time in another setting. But I do know that you need to have an emergency fund so you don't get tempted to open a charge account. Oh, we have an emergency fund and we feed it. And we have to have an emergency fund. We have an old car. He's paid for, but he has over 221,000 miles on him. And last Sunday, I drove some folks up to Vancouver for the safety conference that the conference had. And on the way back, it started missing. And he's I could smell oil. And Greg Sanders says, yeah, he's burning oil. So I got him in this last week, and I had put too much oil in him. I didn't know you could do that. I thought full was full. Good thing we have an emergency fund. And then, so they fixed that. And they fixed the window that wasn't going up or down. And then we had still some money left in my emergency fund. I thought, while I'm in there, I'm going to get him fixed. He's going to get his brakes. So he got rear brakes. And as I decided to do that, I got a call from Liberty Mutual. I'd had a hit and run last November. And they were finally settling the claim on, pain and suffering. And I got $1,750. Yeah, that paid for Maxie. I tell you, God pays attention. He loves us so much, there isn't a thing that goes by him. Just try. Just try and surprise God. He is so awesome. Now, you need to also pay for retirement, plan for retirement, college fund. You need to save for known or upcoming needs. Anybody heard of Christmas? If you like to give gifts, December 25th is coming all year. Plan for it. I'm just saying. I saw this guy on TV, one of the news channels carried a little blip about him. It's called Mr. Money Mustache. And he writes a blog. And he and his family live below their means. What a concept. He drives a bike. He says, why would I need a big car or an F-150 to carry my little self around? He says, it's just me. He retired at 30. What could you do if you could retire at 30? Those are young people in here. There's some older people like us. But what could you do with the rest of your life? Wouldn't that be fun? Then you could go on your Maranatha trips. You could go do something fun. You could go to Fiji, build a school, build a church. Wouldn't that be fun? So again, we have to think about what do we want to do with our lives? Like you guys, you're so fun, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, it takes discipline to be able to get where you need to go. And the writer of Hebrews writes, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Yeah. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So hang in there, God says. Discipline is okay. All right, now we get to the fun part. Give it. Spend it, save or invest it, give it. Okay, this is not tithes. We covered that already. That's not something that's discretionary. Giving is discretionary. It's something you do because you're moved to do so. And when you think about who owns it all, it's not hard to think about what you want to do with that money. And we were talking, the singing reminded me, we are living in a time where the work needs funding. It needs us. Not only us and our hearts, but it needs the funds that we can provide for it. First things first, my brothers and sisters. Listen to the Holy Spirit's prompting. It is not only to grow the gospel, but to watch for others that you can bless. Like that $134 that I got so long ago from our church treasurer. This secret to financial peace is completely counterintuitive, isn't it? What? She wants me to give it away? Why not? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do when we can't buy or sell? Yeah. So here's the deal. Giving actually seems to bless the giver more than the recipient. Have you ever, you know this. We're hardwired to give and to enjoy it. We're hardwired with endorphins that we feel good when we give. Again, the wisest man who ever lived says, honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. But we're not to hoard. Remember the parable of the rich man who had a really, really good crop? And he said, what am I going to do with all this? Oh, I know, I'll tear down my old barns and I'll build new barns, and I will rest on my laurels for many years. And the Lord said, oh, you fool, tonight your life will be required of you. Then where is this all going? So sharing with the poor is something that we have at our doorstep and in front of our eyes. I've got another last words kind of thing. This is from the King David. He was saying goodbye to his people, handing over his responsibilities to his son, King Solomon. And you know, David wanted so badly to build the temple for the God of Israel. He wanted so badly to have some place to worship where the ark could be. And God told him, no, you have blood on your hands. Your son's going to do that. But that didn't mean that David couldn't get ready. He'd had the plans. The Lord had given him the plans. And he's in this picture, I'm pretending, I'm imagining he's giving Solomon the plans. And he said, I've gotten all this gold and all this silver and the wonderful wood and the paneling. And then he prayed, and this is his prayer, but who am I? And who are my people that we could give anything to you? Everything we have has come from you, and we give only what you first gave us. And then guess what happened? Other people said, well, I can give. Well, I can give. Can we give? And they had more than enough to build that beautiful temple. That's what happens when we're generous of heart. It inspires other people too. But the bottom line, this is, I'm circling back. This is, tell them what you told them. Tell them what you told them. John 3:16 reminds us that our God is a giving God. Watch this word. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And we have this assurance because we are his children. The Apostle John wrote, as we have known and believed that love that God hath to us, God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, so are we in this world. This is the context I need to keep things in perspective. My relationship with him and my relationship with his other creatures. So, how can we have financial happiness in this world? By acknowledging that everything we have is God's. It's not my house, it's God's. It's not my money, it's God's. They're not just my loved ones, they're God's. It's not my life, it's God's. I want my life to be a blank check for God to spend on whatever he needs in this world. And ironically, God will endorse that check and give it back to me with the interest of contentment. Praise God. Dear Jesus, thank you so much that you are a giving God. And as we are your creatures, have been made in your image, you have made us to be givers too. Oh, we are so grateful. Thank you so much. And all the glory and honor be back to you, God. Amen.